Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Tales from the Fandom, where I'm doing my fourth Ask Me Anything, where I've gathered questions from friends and across the internet to answer, so I'm looking forward to doing that. But first, a special announcement is that our podcast is now available on the Spotify app. All you have to do is search for Tales from the Fandom, and it will show up under the podcast section. And so if you have that app, if that's one of your go-to apps, you can listen to any of our episodes on that app and just definitely take advantage of it. It was a long time coming, a long process of requesting it and trying to wait out and see if they would pick it up, and they did. And I'm excited for the opportunity for even more people to discover the podcast. So if you're listening on Spotify, welcome. And for those who use Spotify for all their other podcasting apps, like I know some do, we are now there, so it makes your life even easier. Another note is that we have our book trek episode covering the Iron Druid Chronicles, book 4, Tricked, coming up on December 15th. And if you have any discussion topics or questions that you want Jaquel or I to answer, please send them in to talesfromthefandom@gmail.com, or even go to the Tales from the Fandom Facebook page and check it out there and send the message through there or post it as a comment, and we will be happy to answer it on that episode that we'll be recording pretty soon. We just have to finish reading the book. But now, let's get to the Ask Me Anything questions that I've gotten in. Previous guest, Rebecca Parker, asked, are there any fandoms you think you've exhausted conversation-wise, and is this something I worry about? It has occasionally come up. It happened when I first started the podcast back in 2016, where my initial recording run of the first month or two, I had a lot of Harry Potter. I mean, a lot. Like, there were times where I was recording 2 or 3 episodes a day, and each person was talking about Harry Potter, and it started getting a little burnout for me. You can say so much about Harry Potter, and then it just gets to be repetitive, but I don't ever feel exhausted because I get to see what people are interested in talking about beforehand, and depending on their feelings, I can move the conversation one way or another. It's something I've learned as I've gone through the podcast to balance out different topics, or even just to rearrange them or focus on maybe characters or books rather than the whole fandom and try to cover everything at once. So no, I don't fear burnout or getting exhausted about certain conversations. I just have to make sure I spin it the right way. What is my favorite fandom that I've gotten into due to a recommendation on my show is also the same. Another question from Rebecca. I'm not too sure what I would say I've gotten into from the show. I will say that a friend of the show, Sadie Gearlegs, who's been on a few times, had talked about a book that she had read on Twitter called Woodwalker by Emily Martin. And it's very rare that I stray outside of like the books that I generally read, but because she had highly recommended it and the author had responded to her, it got me interested enough in it that I decided to pick up the book, and it was well worth it. And in fact, I have an episode with that author, Emily Martin, coming up in January. So I would say that's one that I've gotten into. Another that I got into that I watched was Dollhouse, the Joss Whedon TV series, thanks to Andy J from episode 5 for recommending it to me. I love Joss Whedon stuff, but I never watched Dollhouse for whatever reason. I did really enjoy getting to watch that. And I think there's a few other things that I've gotten into that I watched. I just can't remember them off the top of my head right now. And maybe if they come up later, I'll blurt them out inappropriately. But yeah, that's what I've gotten into recently. Rebecca also asked, do I feel obligated to try out every recommendation? I don't feel obligated. I wish I had more time in the day to actually sit down and read or play the video games or watch the anime. There are certain things where I do put myself under those obligations to watch it, like I did with Dollhouse for Andy and with a few other books that have been recommended to me, where I put it on myself and then I'm like, look, I did it. I actually watched it or read it or whatnot. And it's something that I enjoy doing. But there are certain things where I know I'm not going to have the time to do. Like there's certain animes where I've discussed it with guests, and as much as I would love to actually sit down and watch the anime, because usually they're subtitled, it's very hard for me to split my time between reading that and doing other stuff at the same time. And then Rebecca's last question is, have there been any that I didn't care for? And nothing that's come up. I still am very much not a Twilight person. I've only had a few people on that have discussed Twilight, but it's nothing where I'm like, because I've tried to read Twilight and it wasn't for me, and I'm not going to watch the movies. But other than that, I think everything else, I always give it a go, and I'm very upfront and honest with my opinions after the fact. Anthony Von Dessauer, he's also a previous guest, and he is the host of the Curse of Silverlake podcast, asked, do I like dystopian fiction? And if I do, which is your favorite? Well, the answer is yes, I do like it. However, it has to be done correctly. As far as if it's a book, it has to be written correctly. If it's a movie or TV show, I just have to connect to it. But yes, generally I do like it. As far as my favorites, I don't have one that like stands above the rest. I do have several that I wrote down here. The TV series Handmaid's Tale is great. I haven't read the book on that, but I loved the TV series. I liked the first book, Divergent by Veronica Roth, but I did not like the rest of the series. But that first book was really good. Of course, The Hunger Games, the first two books. The third book, not so much. I was actually very against the third book. As I read it, I just didn't like how it progressed the story. I didn't identify with Katniss during that third book, with her becoming like basically a leader of a revolution and a soldier and all that. Like that did, for me, that wasn't her. I also liked Delirium, which was recommended to me by one of my friends, Jaquel. That first book was good. I think it's an actual trilogy. I did read all three of the books, but the ending is so terrible that it ruined the whole series for me. So I'd recommend the first book, but not the others, just so that way you don't get sad and upset that you wasted so much time reading a book for a terrible ending. And then lastly is Battle Royale, which I've not read the book, but I did see the Japanese TV series, or the Japanese movie, which is incredible, and I think it's a must-watch. I think everybody should definitely take some time to watch it. The next question I have is from the aforementioned author, Emily Martin, who is the author of Woodwalker. She's doing the Creatures of Light trilogy. It's definitely a book series that I highly recommend, and look for her episode in January to come out where we discuss her fandoms and books. She asked me the most useful Harry Potter spell for everyday life. And for me, I would love to give you like the fun answer that I would do. However, the most useful for everyday life would be whatever spells that Molly Weasley uses in her house to clean. That is what I want. That is the spells that I need. I tried to look it up, and it listed like a cleaning spell with soap that clean dishes and stuff, and I would totally do that. But I need the all cleaning house spell where it just cleans up the entire house and puts papers away and organizes. That's what I need. That is the spell for me. That would be the one. However, the fun spell, of course, would be like Accio, for me to just get stuff sent to me, or of course anything for like apparating. I would love to apparate. Finally, Lex Chase, who is also a previous guest, asked, what did I think of Hulu's interpretation of Marvel's Runaways and the changes they've made, such as the casting choice for Chase, or the idea Carolina's been adapted to be into religion and her parents are actually separated? Well, I love The Runaways. It was one of those comics I got into when it came out. I bought them all individually. It is one of those comics that I have in my top 10 of comics that I've read ever. And I love The Runaways, and I love the show. I love what Hulu's doing with it. There are some things that I do not like. I really am a bit disappointed that Molly's she's aged up a bit more than what she should be. I also don't like that Molly's parents are dead. I don't like that they stuck her with Gert and the Yorks family. Those were some of the big ones. And I know that you mentioned the casting choice for Chase. I'm fine with the casting choice, but I think they're writing him in the wrong way. He does not feel like the Chase that the people that have read the Runaways comic will know is actually Chase. Like, this just seems like to be the CW version of what Chase would be, or the ABC Freeform version of what Chase would be. It does not seem to be the Chase that's from the comic books. And that, I think, is one of the biggest things that I'm disappointed in, is the writing for Chase. I know that one of my friends, Gnome, from Hexes and Bows, had also made mention to me. We were talking about it because we both love the Runaways. And he thinks that Gert is also a little bit different, as far as it seems like she's very much not like it. She's very much interested in Chase, like a little too interested. And I'm not sure if it's because they are trying to make it a little bit more obvious or not so obvious, or from the comics. You get different ways, like in the comics, you get a little bit of hints here and there, but it's not entirely like as it is in the TV show, where Gert is just like, oh, Chase, oh, Chase, oh, Chase. Like, it's not like that. So I like Carolina's thing, being into a religion. That's interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes with that as far as the religion side of it. I don't have any problem with it. And then the other thing is there's been some minor plot issues where I've been yelling at the screen about it, and I don't understand where they're going with it or why they even did certain things. But again, they're trying to adapt a comic that has been very highly regarded and held in high standards by a lot of people into a TV series, and their pacing is a lot different than what I was expecting. I'm almost expecting them not to even finish the first volume of Runaways in this season. I can't imagine that they're going to wrap everything up with the Pride storyline in that first season. I'm almost imagining it being stretched out across 2 seasons, or maybe even into 3, just depending, because they do have to change a few things as far as characters, because I can't imagine that they're going to roll Cloak and Dagger into the series like they did in the comic books. I'm waiting to see how they continue to pace it. I did enjoy getting to see the Pride background, like the background on the Pride family, the Pride members, and like all of them, and see their motivations that you don't get to see in the comics. But again, I'm enjoying the story. I love the Runaways, and for everything, like every little thing that I don't like, there's 100 things that I love about the TV show, and I'm just so happy that we're finally getting to see it in some kind of live action form. So that is what I am enjoying about the Runaways. And I think that's it for my questions. So you can definitely, again, find us on Spotify or iTunes or Apple Podcasts or any podcatcher that you use. to get your podcasts. And if you're listening to this, you're doing a great job because you found us somehow. And be on the lookout as far as more episodes, because we are right on the verge of December. I cannot believe it. So we are rolling forward. Just make sure to check us out on our Facebook page, Tales from the Fandom. We also have a fan group that you can join where there's discussion topics. It's called the Fandom of Tales from the Fandom because I'm totally unoriginal at times, and that's what I came up with. And and then we've got the website, Tales from the Fandom. You can follow me on Twitter, TalesFTFandom, and interact with me there. But thank you all so much for the questions. Thank you. And you'll get to hear a new episode in December. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.